Hello, welcome to It's Your Life. It's Your Life. I'm Dr. James J.C. Cooley, your host, and today we got an absolutely magnificent show coming your way. Um, Reason being is everything down here it's been a shortage of healthcare professionals in a lot of arenas, so we can't afford to lose anybody. We have to make sure that everybody stays up to certification, accreditation, also add more doctors, nurses, and healthcare folks to the arena so that we can that they can take care of all of us. So I got an absolutely fantastic guest that's coming on today that's going to talk about that one. This young man been on the show before, absolutely extraordinary doctor. And I'm not going to steal Dr. Cooley's thunder right now, but she's going to introduce him in a few minutes. But how you doing today, Dr. Cooley?
I'm doing fine, James. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. I got up, I got my workout in there. I went to the steam room and sauna, and I'm feeling good. And I'm re-energized, and I'm just ready to go.
Well, I got my workout too. Hey, F45.
And that's
So,
that's something that I encourage everybody to do. Take time, a couple hours for yourself, so you can uh, get your workout in, mind, body.
hello. Oh, okay. I think Dr. Cooley has some technical difficulties, but that's okay. So I'm going to introduce the show and really talk about this amazing guest that we have on the show today. There you go. There you go. So let's talk about the title of the show. The title of the show is The Comprehensive Promotion of Health and Well-Being. And we're getting to know the background of orthopedic surgeon Darin Davidson, MD, and learn how the discussion of health and well-being promotion, longevity, and health span are common, but not entirely reflective of our biology, and how in order to sustainably and optimally promote health and well-being, we need to do so in a comprehensive manner that leverages our biology. And we're also going to be talking about incorporating the polyvagal theory into the promotion of health and well-being, and really what a polyvagal informed perspective really does provide. So let's talk about Darin Davidson. Darin Davidson, MD, is an orthopedic surgeon and developer of the practices of the healthcare athlete, a polyvagal informed approach to promoting health, wellness, and sustainable high performance for healthcare professionals. A polyvagal informed paradigm is utilized as a foundation to integrate mind-based and body-based skills through which we can improve health and well-being, promote sustainable high performance, and decrease the risk of burnout amongst healthcare professionals. It is through the deliberate integration of these skills from a polyvagal informed lens and using both a top-down and bottom-up perspective that we can be at our best for ourselves and those around us in all aspects of life. And Dr. Davidson has been a guest on our show before, so we're welcoming him back to It's Your Life with Dr. James Cooley. Welcome, Dr. Davidson.
How you doing, Dr. Davidson? How you doing,
Great.
sir?
Thanks very much. Both.
It's always a pleasure having you here. It's always a pleasure. So Doc, you just like Michelle just said, you've been a previous a guest on the show, and it was so informative last time. And just be talking about some of these things that we're going to talk about today, especially when it comes to healthcare workers. Last time we talked about burnout.
Right.
Today we're going to talk about, and I'm just talking with you during the break, some of the things to make sure that we keep all of these great professionals trained, keep them on, and et cetera, so that they can take care of the world. So can you tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about you and why you're so passionate about being the great doctor that you are?
Well, thanks for the very generous introduction. So as we've mentioned, I'm an orthopedic surgeon by training, but what I'm most interested in and passionate about doing now is bringing various approaches and strategies to help promote health, well-being, and sustainable high performance. And while I focus on healthcare professionals because that's the world I'm in and I know best, these ideas and these principles really apply to all of us as humans, because at the foundation, at the core of these strategies it's all based on how our biology works, how our nervous system in particular works. And that's common amongst all of us. Doesn't matter what we might do for our craft in life or what domains in life we most want to be successful, however we might define that. It's going to come back to the same principles because we all share the same biology.
You mentioned we all share these things. Could you tell our viewers, and this is kind of a little tricky right here, can you tell our viewers and listeners what lessons did your family, your community all instill in you that you just abide by today and just continue to grow?
That's a really great question. I think there's a few. I think, one of the biggest things that is at the core for me is just learning, curiosity, education, and I don't limit that to school education. There's so much opportunity to learn about things of all sorts outside of formal schooling, although formal schooling, of course, is very important. So the message is not to forget about that. That's, of course, very important, but to not limit it to that there's so much learning that can be had in so many different ways. We can learn from each other. We can, of course, learn from our own experiences. We can learn from nature, from pets, from books, from podcasts, from shows on the internet or TV. There's limitless sources, and to maintain that open curiosity for learning, I think, is very, very important.
Did you always, wanted to be in the medical field or a doctor, or is some instant hit you and that's what you pursue? Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, no, I never, when I was young, was not always about being in the medical field. When I was a younger kid, of course, like many others, I wanted to be a professional athlete. At times it was a baseball player, then it was a basketball player. And of course, that was never all that possible for me, but that's what it was when I was younger. The desire to be in the medical field really started, I think, to take hold kind of towards middle or late high school time. And really what kind of started that off was just some of the exposure to science-related classes within school, as well as many people in my family were in the medical field in one capacity or another. So I was always exposed to that. And I had an interest in learning more about it. And so I had an opportunity to work with a pediatric orthopedic surgeon doing some research just as a summer job. But that allowed me to not only learn about some of the content and knowledge part of it, but also to see some of the treatment aspects, because I could shadow him during his clinics and surgical care that he would provide. And just being exposed to that is really what sort of lit that passion, I guess you could say, for pursuing that path.
So you mentioned a second ago about the orthopedic side, but you also mentioned the professional side of helping others out. What intrigued you so much about the orthopedic side?
Well, the field of orthopedic surgery really intrigued me because of how broad it is. So within healthcare, at least currently, this wasn't always how it was. If we go back decades and decades, things get so specialized. And the field of orthopedic surgery, at least from my perspective, is very broad because it involves treating people from the time of birth to the time of death. It involves treating all types of different conditions, both injuries as well as illnesses and diseases that may occur. And it involves doing so across the entire body, basically. So orthopedic surgeons are involved in everything through the neck, down the spine, into the pelvis, and down, from the shoulders to the hands and the hips to the feet. And so there's that real broad exposure, lots of variety within the learning, the training to become an orthopedic surgeon, but also in practice afterwards. So it wasn't as focused on one very particular thing as many other medical specialties have become.
It's just like you mentioned, so many different aspects to being an orthopedic surgeon. Would you say that that's one of the most difficult traits to learn because you have to function on from the neck all the way down to the toes. How do you guys stay abreast with the changing in technology, because it's changing all the time? Case in point, I can remember 25 years ago, I had a hip replacement.
Very
the left hip, and then I had my right hip replaced about 2.5 years ago. Completely different surgeries, and also the healing time. And so how you all stay abreast and learning all the different body parts to become specialized in certain areas of orthopedic surgery?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, things really have evolved a tremendous amount. I mean, in all medical fields, orthopedics no different. And to be fair, I think many orthopedic surgeons currently are very focused on, for instance, just doing hip or knee replacements. And there are many fewer that would treat the entire body and the entire age spectrum. But that opportunity does exist, when you are going into the field. But part of staying up to date with that is just not just sort of licensing requirements for maintaining our knowledge base and keeping it current, but also just part of being a good healthcare professional and being able to provide the best care to one's patients is staying current as things develop and evolve over time.
Oh, yeah. And so just like the topic today that we're going to talk about right after the break, the comprehension of staying abreast. And I guess it's a lot of learning that's just like we mentioned, technology keep it evolving in that. And I believe, in order to be the best or one of the best in your fields, you have to be able to stay abreast. You have to be able to chat with your other colleagues, and you got to learn from each other, I believe, right? The different doctors.
Totally agree.
Yes. So, but we're going to take a station break, but we're going to come back and we're going to continue this great discussion with Dr. Darren. If you want to be part of this conversation, whatever platform you're watching on, all you have to do is go to the comments, ask this great doctor any question that you might have, and I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll be back shortly after the break.
I never wanna leave. Yeah, I'm right where I wanna be. We got something you and me, and I can't get rid of this feeling. Just like a magnet, we're just like a magnet. The things we have can be taken for granted. Now I know that it has always been you. I can't help it, I'm so drawn to you. Just like a magnet, we're just like a magnet. The things we have can be taken for granted. Now I know that it has always been you. I can't help it, I'm so drawn to you. Hey, I'm so drawn to you. I'm so drawn to you.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, or hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, There is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? In everything that you do.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I got my fantastic guest here, Dr. Darren is what I call him. And I tell you, education, learning, it's always there. We can all learn from this great man. We can all learn from great doctors out there that must maintain their current certification and continue to grow, because the world is going to continue to change. Injuries are always going to be there. So I tell you, if you want to be part of this conversation, regardless where you're watching this at, all you have to do is go to the comments, ask this great doctor any question you might have. Dr. D, the title of the show is The Comprehensive Promotion of Health and Wellbeing. Can you tell our viewers and our listeners why you chose that topic, and why is it so important that comprehension, promotion, and also learning and keeping the doctors and the healthcare workers up to date on what's going on?
Yeah, I think that the reason that I wanted to talk about it is pretty much the same as why it's so important. And that really is that in order to optimally and most fully promote our health and well-being, as well as our ability to perform to our highest level in any and all parts of our life, and to do so over the prolonged duration of time, we have to do it in a comprehensive fashion, meaning in a way that is mindful of and respectful of how our minds and our bodies work together as a single entity, as our biology. It's not just about our body, it's not just about our mind, although similar to how medical specialties get very specific, we frequently hear discussions or come across discussions that focus only on one part of health or well-being or another. But in reality, we really need to have a way to unify it and to talk about it as a single biological entity. Because at the end of the day, as humans, we're not just a mind, we're not just a body, we're both together. And so the reason this is important is it's very easy to get lost in the discussions out there about all of the health hacks and the things we have to do, the checklist to go down every day from when you wake up to when you go to bed in order to be healthy or to promote your well-being. And it almost becomes as though we're human doings if we're following this list rather than human beings, and sort of losing sight of what makes for a good, fulfilling life, because we're too fixated on all of these different activities or tasks that need to be done in order to promote health and well-being.
So you are in the process and already have, because I watch your website, all that. How and why did you develop the practices of healthcare athletes?
So that's the term that I came up with some input and help from a few people that were advising me of the overall kind of concept or principles of bringing this very comprehensive approach that involves our mind-based strategies and skills as well as our body-based skills and strategies to the healthcare field. And the reason that I feel that's so important and I'm so passionate about it is that we really don't do a whole lot of training, be it in medical school or our residency training or once we're in practice, about how we best promote our own health and well-being or the skills we need in order to perform well, which means to be able to treat our patients well as be good colleagues and partners for the various healthcare professionals we work with. Yet that's so instrumental in being able to do that job well. And many people are contemplating leaving the healthcare field for a variety of reasons. Burnout is a major one. I think we might have talked about when I was on your show last time that I had my own personal experience with burnout. And so I have that firsthand knowledge as well as the perspective from being within the healthcare profession of how important it is that we promote and develop these skills amongst all healthcare professionals. It's not just about the doctors, it's about the PAs, physical therapists, the nurses, the occupational therapists, the pharmacists, everybody that's a part of the system. Because if we don't, then the system starts to fragment. And this system is crucial in order to promote health and well-being and treat diseases and injuries that come up as a part of life amongst everybody within our society.
Would you say that there has been a shortage of healthcare professionals, especially over the last 10 years, and that it's kind of hard for the system to get everybody back in it in order to take care of everyone? What would you think some of the challenges are that people are actually leaving the field? I know you mentioned burnout. How do we go about getting people to start focusing on the medical field again?
Well, that's a topic for many shows. There's so many aspects to it, to be honest. I think the perspective I have, the way that I think about it is I sort of break it down into a few different large categories, and then you can kind of delve into each category. And at the outset, I would say this is not about blaming people for becoming burnt out or blaming people who want to leave and pursue something else. But if we're going to look at it as objectively as we can, so that we can understand it as best we can, so that we can then use that information to make a difference, I think we need to look at what's happening at the individual level, so the healthcare professionals themselves. We need to look at what's happening at the system level. So that's a pretty big, broad category in and of itself, but how's the healthcare system set up? And then a category kind of in between the two, which is the culture that exists within the healthcare system. That's partly the result of how individuals are and partly the result of how the system is organized and regulated. And there's many different issues, within each of those. So for instance, if we look at a system level, there's a very high demand of work that's expected of healthcare professionals. There's a lot of regulatory things that aren't necessarily directly related to patient care that are necessary and have to be done. The method by which information is kept through electronic records can be very cumbersome and a source of a lot of frustration and extra time and difficulty for people. At the individual level, I think it comes down to how are we managing all of these demands? Because at the end of the day, no matter what we do to change the system, healthcare is always going to be a high demand profession, just by its nature, by having to make decisions along with our patients that impact their well-being, their health, and in many instances, their life. And that's inescapable. That's just part of how it is. And then you have the culture, and that's sort of the interaction of the two. And a lot of times, the high level of stress, people working long hours, not necessarily able or having the knowledge of how to promote their own health and wellness, can take on a very, at times, toxic type of culture where people are working together in body, but not in spirit, not emotionally, not psychologically. And it can become very difficult. And for a lot of these reasons, many people just don't want to be a part of it. And of course, as more people leave, it just makes it more and more difficult for the people that are remaining because there's more demand that gets placed upon them.
Would you say that the emergency room doctors Michelle got a couple in her family that I guess they said they 18, 19, 20 hours in there. And this guy mentioned to me that emergency room doctors are more likely to burn out and even have mental health problems, like commit suicide and stuff like that. Is it really that bad? I'm talking about in the emergency room. I mean, we as patients, we go in and we don't notice these things because the doctors are the same. But you and your colleagues, you all know what takes place in the background and all the 19 and 20 hours of work. And I can see why that would cause some issues.
Oh, for sure. And those work hours are very real. They're not, that's not really an exaggeration. What's interesting is there's currently these requirements that work hours are limited amongst trainees, so amongst residents, for instance, and that's a very good thing. However, what's kind of missing is that once you then finish your training and start practice, there's no work hour restrictions at all. And it's interesting because, if we look at the airline industry as an example, there are very specific limits to how many consecutive hours a pilot can work, what the minimum amount of time between flights and shifts are for pilots. And one of the thoughts behind that is to ensure that they get enough rest and recovery time and sleep, of course. But we don't have any of that in healthcare. And so outside of once somebody completes their training, if they wanted to work 48 hours straight, there's nothing stopping that.
Wow.
And that eventually creates a big problem because, and this is part of the promoting health, there's no way that we can perform as human beings, that we can be at our best if we don't have the opportunity to restore our minds, our bodies, our spirits, our emotions, all of it. We just will hit a wall at some point. And that's what can happen when the work hours are very long. It can be made worse by a lot of shift work that's variable. And that happens for emergency room physicians. They'll have like a day shift, they'll have an evening shift, they'll have an overnight shift, and they're just sort of cycling through all of these shifts. And shift work, we know, is a very difficult thing for sleep. And without enough sleep, we know that can lead to many different health effects, both mental health as well as physical health.
You're absolutely right. And I believe that the medical field is probably more stressed than any because you guys want to take care of your patients and sometimes get attached to them. And the whole 9 yards. Last time we talked about this thing called polyvagal paradigm. I want to start this right now. Tell our viewers exactly what that is, and then we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and dive deep into that. So let's get it started now. What exactly is that?
So this is all based on Polyvagal Theory, which was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, and he really first started talking about it in the early to mid 1990s. And the best way to summarize it is this describes how our nervous system functions in many respects beneath our conscious awareness and instantaneously. So even before we might know that it happens. And what it's responding to is all of the various cues inside our body and our minds, outside in the environment, and between the people we might be interacting with. And this occurs for all of us as humans. In fact, it occurs across all animals to varying degrees, but all mammals have these three branches to their nervous system that we do as humans. And the reason that I base all of my work off of the polyvagal theory and use this polyvagal informed paradigm is that it's at with ourselves internally as well as externally. And from there, we can then build out and make use of all these other skills and strategies that are available and do so in a way that is completely consistent with how we as humans kind of function and experience everything around us.
I want to hold that thought because I think it's important that we pick this up right after the break and continue to educate us on that one because that just sounds so fascinating. So we're going to take a station break, but I tell you, if you want to be part of this great conversation, all you have to do is just go to the comments, ask this great doctor any question that you like. I promise you I'll get you on the screen. We'll get you next. It's Your Life. I'm Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We'll see you shortly after the break.
I never wanna leave. Yeah, I'm right where I wanna be. We got something you and me, and I can't get rid of
Noah Dingley here, producer of The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. And the new audio version of James' book, Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet, is a must-have. James shares his true life story of struggle and success in America. It's both a cautionary tale and a roadmap to achieving the American dream. Get the new audio version of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James Cooley on Amazon.com or wherever audiobooks are sold.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life, and I tell you what, just ending that last segment, Doc got me thinking about all these things, about the three different systems of the Polyvagal Theory, and I can't wait to jump back into that because it's just it just sounds fascinating on how the mind, body, and soul works. And if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is go to the comments. Ask this great doc any question that you like, and I promise you I'll get you on the screen. We'll get you an answer. I want to pick it up there, Doc. You were talking about the Polyvagal Theory, and you was explaining the mental portion of it. Can you pick it up from there again, please?
Sure. So just for a little bit of background, and we might have talked about this last time, but in case people weren't able to watch that or aren't familiar with it, there's through the Polyvagal Theory, three branches to how our nervous system works. And this is all within the autonomic nervous system, meaning it happens automatically. It's not under our conscious control. One branch is called the ventral vagal system, and that you can think of as when we're calm and grounded, connected with whatever it is that we're doing. This is also the part of the nervous system that allows us to recover and to restore our homeostasis, so come back to baseline after stressful or high demand situations. Next is the sympathetic nervous system, which frequently gets talked about as the fight or flight response. So in response to something stressful or a threat in our environment, we kind of mobilize our energy up and in an attempt to deal with that situation. And then the third branch is called the dorsal vagal system, and that is really like a shutdown and collapse sort of state. It's essentially if a threat that is in our environment hasn't been adequately managed by our sympathetic nervous system, we fall into this dorsal state. And the reality is that we can shift between these states in that order, between those three circuits essentially, continuously and in response to whatever is going on in our environment. And by environment, I don't just mean externally, I mean internally and between other individuals. And what's important to recognize is that the state that we're in influences not just our body, but our mind as well, our thinking, how we perceive and interpret events and cues around us and within us, as well as how we breathe, how our muscle tone is, how fluidly we might move. This even has impacts on the changes in our voice tone, on the facial muscles and how kind of contracted or relaxed they may be. And so it really does impact all aspects of our life. And an important point to note is that if we are to truly promote health and well-being, we need to be able to recover and restore our health. And that happens through the ventral pathways. So we need to be able to get into that mode in order to fully promote our health and well-being. And in fact, most of the strategies that are out there to help promote those things that we see and are commonly exposed to have that final pathway of it's increasing our ventral vagal action, basically, so that we are able to restore our bodies and our minds.
Well, we got Joshua Goldsmith here, and he asking you a whole lot of questions. Let's start with the first one first. He said, what roles does the alternative healthcare practices such as acupuncture, or cannabis have to help their patients? So we'll just ask that one first.
Sure. So, that's a great question. Thanks very much for asking it. And I think this points out an important concept, and that is that just as I talk about being comprehensive mind and body and integrating the final common pathway of the polyvagal theory, when we're looking at treatments either to manage an illness or a disease, or just as health maintenance, we should also consider all options that are out there. And this question brings up acupuncture, acupressure, and cannabis. Of course, there's others, such as chiropractic and many, many other different types of treatments. And I think that we need to have an open mind to what these various modalities can provide. We always have to be careful whether we're talking about traditional Western medical practices or what get called complementary or alternative practices, what the downsides might be, because there are downsides. There's really a dogma within typical Western medicine that these alternative or complementary practices aren't on the same level as traditional Western medicine. And that's just simply not true. I think they all have their various roles, and it's really important to just understand what the potential benefits are, what the drawbacks might be, and what the appropriate time is to use which combination of practices in order to get to the end result that we're looking for.
And he also mentioned about the integration of, I think you just touched on that a little bit, of Western medicine. Can you add a little bit more? Do you recommend, or do a lot of your colleagues recommend the combination of both? I know a lot of traditional medicine doctors just stay focused on their own field and not the holistic side.
Yes, absolutely. I think both is important. I think, again, what is most critical is that we recognize what different practices can provide to a given situation and make sure that we don't avoid what might be the best option just in the name of trying other things. And so by that, I as an example that comes to mind is there are some practitioners that will claim that, these complementary treatments don't provide anything of benefit. And so, I worked in an oncology setting, and there would be some oncologists that would say these complementary practices aren't going to help treat the cancer, so we're not going to use them at all. And that's just not really the case. On the other hand, you don't want to just solely use complementary practices to treat a cancer, because that's not going to work either. And what we really need to have is a more integrated approach, whereby we have a kind of very large toolbox that we can then pick and select which skills, which strategies we want to use to deal with a given situation. And that's actually the exact paradigm that I use with the whole practices of the healthcare athlete, is that we want to develop skills and strategies, many different ones, so that we have a lot to choose from in any given situation in order to help ourselves. And from the question that was asked, that we use that same analogy, that same metaphor, to really have a variety of things that we can do to try to help people with whatever the situation is that they may be facing.
So going back to the polyvagal theory, and you talked about the perspectives. What would happen, potentially happen, if people are not really truly using those perspectives? And is that one of the reasons that burnouts and not being able to use the three systems that you talked about, or not being aware of all the three systems that could cause problems?
Well, that's a great question and very insightful on your part. And I'll just start my response by clearly saying that I don't think we have a definitive answer about how polyvagal perspectives sort of integrate with the concept of burnout. However, from a polyvagal lens that we might apply to it, and using those principles, burnout very much looks like what would happen if an individual was kind of stuck in that dorsal vagal state. And a lot of the features of burnout, such as exhaustion, feeling completely detached from whatever it is that the person is doing and what has caused the burnout, feeling disconnected, are very much typical features of a dorsal vagal state. And if we were to use the paradigm from polyvagal theory, that then gives us some strategies about how we might be able to help an individual that has become burnt out, but also how to help promote skills for people to avoid getting into that situation to begin with. And so while we don't have any definitive answers, like research evidence-based answers, there's a lot of good sort of rationale for using this paradigm within the whole issue of burnout.
What are some of the recommendations that doctors might want to advise administrators, some of the guys that are actually running the organizations, hospitals and all that, on how to help prevent burnout? Some of the signs to notice, because in most cases it's a business. Administrators are just out to, I'm sure they care, but it's money, bringing money into it. What are some recommendations that we might want to tell administrators to pay attention, watch out, try to come up with plans where you're not working more than 80, 90 hours a week, or whatever that might be the case? Do you have any?
That is a great question that I think there's a lot of ideas out there. It's very difficult because there's a lot of competing interests, to be fair. And then, like you say, it is a business. And so from that perspective, we need to get the attention of the decision makers. And from a business perspective, there are some pieces of information that should get them to take note. And I came across this, and I'm trying to remember where within the last couple of weeks, but the estimate of what it would take to replace a surgeon, just purely the financial side of it from the hospital perspective, is something like $1 million. Because of the retraining, the time it takes when you bring in somebody new to get up volume-wise and things of this sort. So even if we are looking at it from the business perspective, which of course is not what we're advocating, because there's the human side of it and there's the providing care to patient side of it and so many other important considerations. But if only to look at the business side of it, it makes perfect sense to invest money to avoid having to replace too many people because they leave, because they don't like their work environment, because they become burnt out, because it just becomes impossible to continue on. So hopefully those sorts of pieces of evidence would get their attention to then listen to, well, what are the things that can be done? And I think when we turn our attention to now what can be done, we can go back to those categories we were talking about earlier. So what can we do on the individual level for the healthcare professionals? What can we do on the system level to change how things are currently being done to make it more supportive for the healthcare professionals to do their job in a sustainable way? And by working on those two, you get that interaction with the culture and make everything more tolerable and foster a better environment for people to work in and to provide care to their patients in.
Yeah, I think you just hit it on the nose, the environment, and also understanding the doctor's needs. That's what the administrators need to do. We're going to take a station break, but we're going to come back. We're going to pick it up, and we're going to continue this great discussion with this great doctor. It's your life. I'm Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We'll be back shortly after the break. Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I tell you, just fascinating. Just like I've said, just sitting back and learning a lot, about the medical field from this great medical doctor here, and it's just it's amazing. As we as patients sometimes do not understand that the doctor struggles as well, trying to take care of us, trying to make sure that they can stay under control because their job is to make sure that they're going to take care, they're going to save every patient, they're going to help every patient out, and just getting a different perspective from that side, from the medical doctor side, is it gives us a better awareness and a better understanding of how great these folks are. So just want to thank you, Doc, man, for sharing all this great information. We ain't done yet. We still got some more. Yeah, I want to go back to the polyvagal theory again, and one of the things that crossed my mind earlier, and I kind of got thrown off. What are some of the challenges of maintaining and implementing these theories that if we don't understand it's the challenges, it probably not going to work. Can you talk about that a little bit? Hey, Doc, can you hear me? uh, hello. uh, I don't think Doc can hear me right now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We had a little bit of a technologic glitch there for a moment, but I think we're back.
I was asking what were some of the challenges, going back to the polyvagal theory, some of the challenges implementing that. I'm talking about universally. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think first and foremost, it's a matter of awareness of people learning about it and understanding it so that they can then begin to implement it in their lives. While this was described, coming up on, I guess, 30 years ago, it still is not widely known about, even within the medical profession, even within the mental health field where it first really took hold. It's still not widely discussed or implemented. And that's not because of a lack of evidence supporting it. It's not because of a lack of importance or application of it. It's just taken some time, I guess, but there definitely is signs that it is becoming more widely discussed and applied in different fields. And then I think the next challenge that we need to recognize is, even amongst people who understand this theory and have developed the skills and strategies and understanding, with having this polyvagal informed life, as we call it, because we're human, we're all going to mess it up at some point. And even with a lot of attention paid to it, we're not always going to get it right. And it's just important to recognize that, because if we don't, then it can become difficult or in a sense, almost hard to continue with this paradigm. You say, oh, I know about all these things. Why can't I use it all the time? Well, the answer is because we're human. And that's just how it is. While this theory and its practices that are based off of it are very effective at helping us to regulate ourselves and manage ourselves within various situations, it is the case that we will always dysregulate to a point. We will always not fully be in control of what is going on within our bodies, and that's just what it is to be human. And what this theory also teaches us is that it's not about preventing that from happening, preventing that dysregulation. It's about restoring the regulation as quickly as we're able under those circumstances. And so I'd say those are really the two big challenges: is getting a large number of people to become aware of it, and then once we are, to recognize that it's not going to fix everything by itself, because nothing will. That's just not how life is, but it gives us the skills to be in the best position possible.
You mentioned it won't fix everything, but it is. Can you tell our viewers how this could potentially benefit other facets of their lives, the families, etc.?
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about this theory. It doesn't just apply to one part of life. So through our conversation, we've talked about it within healthcare professionals and specifically their jobs essentially. But the same skills, the nervous system works in the same way across all parts of life. So the skills that we can learn that would help a healthcare professional at work are the same skills that will help them when they're at home with their family, when they're out in nature, say going for a hike or whatever they enjoy doing, when they're with their friends, when they're pursuing hobbies, every part of life, including their health and well-being. So these skills about learning to recognize what state we're in and to use skills in our mind and our body to shift our state as needed will apply across all of life. And the more we're able to do that for ourselves, the more we positively impact all the people around us. So it really is a comprehensive approach within ourselves as well as within the larger community. And the more people that are able to embody these ideas, the better everything would be in society, because we'd effectively be connecting better with ourselves and each other and assisting ourselves and each other to the greatest extent possible.
Wow, we got the better part of 3 minutes to go. Hey, Doc, what are some of the things that you're working on? You're such a fascinating doctor. Or you got any upcoming books, or you got any projects that you might want to share with us?
No books. Maybe we could co-author one together. What I do have writing-wise is a weekly blog that is on my website as well as on Substack that really takes different principles of what we've talked about today and discusses them in a bit more detail. They're pretty short. They're anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes to read. But it's a weekly thing that, since you mentioned the idea of a book, could become the basis for that in the future. So that's one thing that I have been working on and continue to. Another is eventually putting this into a video content format that would be available as like a course. And so that's a little bit more down the road, but definitely on the horizon. And one other thing upcoming, this more for healthcare professionals, is we're going to soon have the ability to provide continuing medical education credits for reading through these blogs and reflecting on the content and how to apply that within their lives. So those are a few things that are coming up.
How can if someone, our viewers watching this, wanted to reach out and get in touch with you, how could they reach out and communicate with you?
Really, the best way, the simplest way would just be through my website. There's a contact form on my website. The website address is just my name, Darin, Darin, Davidson.com. And through that contact form is really the simplest, quickest way to contact me. Other ways, through LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. To be honest, I can never remember the addresses or whatever for those, but there's links from the website to those pages as well. So if people are interested in learning more, I would definitely check out the website as a starting point, and there's links to the Substack and social media from there.
Doc, I want to thank you. I want you to know that you always got a standing invitation on the James Cooley Show, if your schedule permits. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come on and educate our viewers and educate everybody. So thank you so much, sir. I'd like to also thank my great executive producer, Dr. Michelle Cooley, for putting together another great show. Most importantly, I'd like to thank our viewers and our listeners for tuning in to the James Cooley Show, It's Your Life, because it truly is your life. I want everybody to always dream big, think big, and be big at everything you do. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. It's your life.